BookTube and all Repairman Jack fans. My name is Nathan. Thank you so much for watching and welcome to my channel. This is my short spoiler-free review video for book number 15 in the Repairman Jack series, Fatal Error, which was published in 2010. Fatal Error is preceded by The Last Christmas or Ground Zero. Depends on how you want to read it. If you watch my video on The Last Christmas, then you'll see what I mean, especially my discussion video. Because I bring up multiple things about the timeline changing, that he's updating it into the modern era or a more contemporary setting. But he also does the same thing with Fatal Error, which I didn't remember happening, but that happens. So anyway, The Last Christmas or Ground Zero, because The Last Christmas just came out in 2019, and it wasn't, obviously was not written when he wrote Fatal Error. And then the one after this is The Dark at the End, which came out in 2011. So let me read the back cover copy for Fatal Error, and then I'll give you a few thoughts on it, and then I'm going to save everything else for my longer discussion video. And just in case you're new to this, then I post short spoiler-free review videos for each book in the Repairman Jack series, and then a longer discussion video the following Thursday where I get into themes, analysis, and discussion points, things like that. All right. Munir Habib's life has become a nightmare. His tormentor has warned Munir not to report the kidnapping of his family, or else they will pay a terrible price. But there's a guy who fixes situations like this, Repairman Jack. Jack helps Munir despite Jack's ongoing involvement in the cosmic shadow war between the ally and the otherness. Or perhaps because of it. He's chafing at being forced into the defensive role of protecting the lady, the physical embodiment of the consciousness of the planet Earth. Meanwhile, the Septimus Order and the Kickers are seemingly working in concert on a plot to extinguish the lady and open the way for the otherness to take over our reality. To top it all off, Dawn Pickering finally goes into labor and delivers a baby she only glimpses as it's whisked away. She's terrified by what she sees. All these interlocking plots mean doom for humanity, but Jack never gives up or gives in. Okay, so Fatal Error is... It totally depends on how you interpret the series, how you want to read the series. But Wilson initially, at least in his note at the beginning of the book, calls it the penultimate Repairman Jack book. So in his mind, at least at the time that he was writing it, the last Repairman Jack book is The Dark at the End. And then Night World is an Adversary Cycle book with big Jack crossovers. That's not how I've conceived of the project. If you've been following along, you know that I've just been considering Night World the last Repairman Jack book in terms of the timeline, because The Dark at the End is not the last Repairman Jack book. Night World is obviously an Adversary Cycle book and a Repairman Jack book, and they're going together. I mean, if you whether you're a fan or not, as long as you're aware of what, let's say, the MCU has done, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, then it's like you've got all of the Avenger movies, but you also have standalone movies. So it's like, is the Avengers an Iron Man movie? Well, yes, but not exclusively. Iron Man's in it, but it's not exactly about him or entirely about him. But then are Iron Man movies Avenger movies? Well, no. So he's basically doing the same thing where you have this shared universe. So Fatal Error really fits into that, because with Fatal Error, it is a Repairman Jack book, but you can see that Jack is having less involvement in some ways as other characters are stepping forward. And this is, I'm trying not to spoil too much, and I don't think this is really much of a spoiler, but Glaken is playing a bigger role here. You're starting to get introductions of other characters that we're going to see in Night World. You don't really get introductions, but we get glimpses of them. And there's also Reprisal that's happening at the same time as Fatal Error. So I actually have not read Reprisal before, but these books are taking place at the same time. And so I feel like it would probably be most helpful, and I'm not doing it because I already set a plan for the series, but part of my reading plan was to just see what happens if I read all of the Repairman Jack books in order and in quick succession. But now that I'm doing it, then I'm realizing, oof, I probably should not have done it that way. I think it maybe would have made more sense to read the Adversary Cycle books and Repairman Jack books and kind of just go between them. That I think probably what I should have done is read Fatal Error and maybe even read Reprisal at the same time, like 50 pages of each at a time or something. I don't know, or read Reprisal just before reading Fatal Error. Somebody help me out here. I will get to this. I will get to it. But it becomes less obvious how to even read the series as you get deeper into it. And Fatal Error is good, but everything at this point is, as much as you have Jack kind of doing some fixes in this book, it's no longer a Repairman Jack book. It's really a Night World, like a prelude to Night World, even though we still have one in between, the Dark at the end. But it's not functioning as a standalone. Things don't get wrapped up. Jack has got, like, he's not going to take on any big jobs or fixes because everything is leading towards Night World and this big conclusion to everything as Rasalom starts, getting closer and closer to achieving exactly what it is that he wants. So this is where I'm like, even like the last however many books in the series, basically since Harbingers, then you really have to read them in order, and Fatal Error especially so. And it's not that it's not a fun book. It is, but I would say it is not a fun book on its own. You get to the end of Fatal Error, and then you're just like, all right, now I immediately want to just start reading the Dark at the end, and you get to the Dark at the end, and then you're like, okay, now I need to read Night World. Which is good. It's good that it works that way. But in terms of a review, and if you're going into this, like if you happen to have a copy of Fatal Error and you're unfamiliar with Repairman Jack, I would say this is one of the worst books to read as a entry point into the series. That it just, you could do it, but you're going to be lost for big sections of it. You'll still have fun, but it's not the best representation of who Jack is and the type of work that he does. So I'm going to save everything else for my discussion video, and I am going to have thoughts about the updated timeline, because like I say, if you did watch my longer discussion video for the last Christmas, I definitely had issues there, because it's supposed to be, the series itself has got a timeline, a very clear timeline of year 0, -1, -2, -3. So all of this is supposed to be taking place in the span of, I think, 3 years from the Tomb to Night World. But the timeline keeps getting updated, which gets confusing when you're reading the earlier books. It's just, like I say, I will talk about that in the longer video. Anyway, Fatal Error, it is a good book. It's enjoyable, especially if you've been reading the Repairman Jack series. You don't need any motivation or encouragement to move on to the Dark at the end. If you're already this deep into the series, there's no way you're going to duck out at this point. There's no way you're going to say, I don't care how it wraps up. It's just, it's got this propulsion to it, and you know that it's all leading up to Night World, and part of it when you're reading it is like, let's hurry up and get there. All right, so I'll save everything else for the longer video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.